send a student to a suspension center. I have yet to hear of that. Most of the things that are implemented by the government has yet to be fully utilized by the teachers, yet we are here trying to bring back something that we removed in place of these things. Firstly, we should try to bring these to a standard and then move forward. And if somewhere down the line these measures actually do not work, then we can even consider this barbaric proposition by the opposition. Madam Speaker, the member for Tobago stated initially that there were no sanctions in place by the government, then continued to say that he was a member of a sanctioned organization in his schooling system. How then can I listen to somebody who contradicts himself in one sentence? Madam Speaker, the member for Tobago stated that he loves the old ways, as well as the member for Port of Spain South. Madam Speaker, slavery is an old way. War is an old way. Back in the old time days, when you had a cut on your foot and it got infected, you would remove the entire foot. Madam Speaker, do we like those old time ways? Madam Speaker, I again must reiterate the proper implementation and use of suspension, expulsion, detention, counseling, Madam Speaker. Those things are there and it can be utilized given the correct training and time taken by teachers.
Honourable members, the speaking time for the Honourable Member for Move On has expired.
Madam Speaker, I beg to move that the speaking time for the Honourable Member be extended by a further 3 minutes.
Honourable members, the question is that the speaking time of the Honourable Member for Move On be extended by 3 minutes. All in favour say aye. Aye. Any against? The ayes have it, member. You may continue.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, House. Madam Speaker, the member for Kumutu-Manzanilla stated that we should use whipping to beat out bad behaviors when applied to the buttocks or arm. But slavery used whipping to beat out bad behavior, and in that time, freedom was a bad behavior. Madam Speaker, who is to define what is bad behavior? Who is there to control these teachers? Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, in the past 13 years, there have been instances of corporal punishment, and it is illegal. Imagine what would happen when corporal punishment, or if corporal punishment, is made legal again. Those teachers that did not do it shall do it, and the ones that did it while it was illegal shall take it further. Madam Speaker. Again, Madam Speaker, I must state that the members of the opposition did not fully define corporal punishment, except for the member of Kumutu-Manzanilla when he stated that whipping on the buttocks or arms, but he did not state to the extent to which this shall take place. Madam Speaker, again, the member for Pointe-a-Pierre stated that we shall not use corporal punishment to bring fear, but yet every other member of the opposition used the word fear in their speeches. Contradictions yet again. Madam Speaker, the members of the government were lambasted by, well, apparently we were hurting the feelings of the opposition because he continuously used the point of information improper, what else? Hurtful language or something like that. Madam Speaker, I would assume that we would sit here today and take into consideration what is said rather than be hurt by the statements. Oh, another thing that the member for Pointe-a-Pierre stated was that we received $2 million.
Honourable Member, may you kindly wind up, please? Okay.
We received $2 million from something in 2011, and I would like to ask, what would we use the whips for? What would we use the money for? To buy matching whips for the teachers? Madam Speaker, in closing, I would like to ask that the members of this House vote not along party lines, but on the merits of the debate and their own moral compass, and for the betterment of the society of Trinidad and Tobago. I thank you.
Member for Sani Grande.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I think I've been sitting here in my comfy chair for about 2 hours. And 3 words I could use to describe this government: arrogance, animosity, and acrimony, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, they don't seem to be aware of the issues that is going on in this country at this point in time. But Madam Speaker, they even say it, you know. They say we like newspapers. Apparently the member for Arima and the member for Mova don't like to read the Express and so forth. But Madam Speaker, I would like to inform you this morning. Madam Speaker, how would it feel to you when you read an article like, Shagona student beaten up, robbed by a gang of 8, Madam Speaker? Madam Speaker, how you feel when you read an article like, 4-month student beaten up his typing teacher, Madam Speaker, February 2011? Or Madam Speaker, from my own constituency, I want to quote from Newsday, October 2013, the 8th, Madam Speaker, not too long ago. Also making headlines was an attack of a 12-year-old female student, a United States citizen who was beaten up in a Sandy Grande secondary school. Madam Speaker, what is in front of these government members' eyes? What is blocking them from seeing what is right before you? That crime is on a rise since the year 2000, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, they would like to talk about how we only saying 11,000 students were suspended. That's 11,000, I think remember then stated, that's 11,000 in 6 years. When they say in the report from the Minister of Education, he said 3,300 in only 1 year, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this government action, this sanction is based on getting rid of the student because they're causing trouble. Why? Because the government, at the fault of the government, at the cost of the government, Madam Speaker.
Will the member give way?
No, sir. I am very pressed for time. I have a lot of things to tell you this morning. Madam Speaker, at the cost of the government, they are just trying to get rid of these students, Madam Speaker, for a period of, what, 1 day, 7 days, 21 days, 28 days? Deprivation, Madam Speaker, of the child's right of education, just so quoted by the Laventille Westminster. She likes to talk about right. What are you doing to students, Madam Speaker? Madam Speaker, I have something to tell the Caroni Central member, because you talk about homework centers and suspension centers. Sir, I believe, Madam Speaker, is just a fragment of our imagination. Because according to July the 10th of 2013, the Minister of Education said suspension centers coming soon. So what suspension centers is he talking about, Madam Speaker? Madam Speaker, he want to talk about he haven't heard of a teacher to send a student to a suspension center. It have no suspension center present.
Will the member give way?
No, sir. I told you already. I have more things to tell this government. Madam Speaker, I'm now getting to taste the pepper in the doubles because apparently, Madam Speaker, this government proposed Project Peace in 2003 after they removed corporal punishment. Madam Speaker, the basis of Project Peace, was on counseling and rehabilitation. Madam Speaker, according to a counselor in 2011, a report from the Ministry of Education Supports Division, they were not renewing the contracts of these counselors, the so-said social workers, the so-said psychologists that's supposed to be rehabilitating these students. For 3 years, Madam Speaker, the time period of 2007 and 2010, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the Ministry of Education was only able to account for 2,088 students being able to receive holistic level of individual counseling, according to the Minister of Education in 2013, July the 21st. So, Madam Speaker, corporal punishment was removed for frivolous reasons, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this opposition wants corporal punishment to be brought back, Madam Speaker, to mend the bridge that this government has broken down since the year 2000. Madam Speaker, I ask the opposition, I don't know if their hearts are cold, if it's made of stone, if it's dried up, but I want to ask the government, Madam Speaker, how can...
Honorable members, may I remind this chamber that offensive and insulting language are not to be used. Also, the speaking time for the honorable member for Sandy Grande has expired.
Madam Speaker, I beg to move that the speaking time for the honorable member for Sangre Grande be extended by 3 minutes.
Honorable members, the question is that the speaking time of the honorable member for Sangre Grande be extended by 3 minutes. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any against? I think the ayes have it. Honorable member, you may continue.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and the colleagues in this House. Madam Speaker, I was at the point where I wanted to show a graphic image where this mother, Madam Speaker, and I asked the government members to take a good look at the picture. I'm sorry my colored printer wasn't working last night, so I had to print it black and white, but it still conveys, Madam Speaker, the horrific, Madam Speaker, the event that took place, Madam Speaker, of this year. Madam Speaker, the 27th of May, 2013, Madam Speaker, this mother was the one that had to suffer a child, her only 14-year-old child, Madam Speaker, being stabbed to death on the school compound over a girl, Madam Speaker. Have this government any compassion and sympathy for the people of Trinidad and Tobago, Madam Speaker? Madam Speaker, I want to close by saying this government needs to understand the importance of this motion. This motion is where this opposition is rather being proactive rather than the reactive government that we have stand before us. Madam Speaker, this opposition is actually trying to mend the bridge, as I said, of discipline that was broken down. Madam Speaker, when a child leaves home and is being disciplined, when he walks out the door and he starts to take his shirt out of his pants, Madam Speaker, it shows where the discipline bridge has fallen short, Madam Speaker, and corporal punishment, if added to the list of sanctions, Madam Speaker, will bring that bridge back to form, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I end with a quote from the Bible, King James, it's as the member for Talparo probably quoted. The Proverbs chapter 22, verse 15, it says, foolishness is bound to the heart of a child. Madam Speaker, Proverbs is a chapter of wisdom. It didn't say use suspensions. It didn't say use detention. It didn't say use any frivolous and whimsical methods, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker.
Honorable member, kindly wind up, please.
Yes, sorry, Madam Speaker, I'm winding up here. It said, Madam Speaker, that the rod of correction shall drive it far from him. Madam Speaker, I thank you.
The Honorable Minister of Finance and the Economy.
Madam Speaker, given the opposition's high debating rounds, I am struck to the quick, yet still it is unfortunate that they have made such fundamentally flawed assumptions. It is unfortunate that they see but one side to their argument. And furthermore, Madam Speaker, it is unfortunate that they have chosen to support the defective, dangerous methods of corporal punishment in our schools. Madam Speaker, the member for Sangre Grande wants to talk about horrific incidents. Let me remind this chamber of something. On November 9th, 2010, Caroline Kisoon of the Trinidad Express reported of police probe of abuse by a female teacher who allegedly slammed a 7-year-old errant infant into a wall. That is horrific incidents, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, let me quote some sociologists here today, Madam Speaker, because the member for Tableland says that corporal punishment, and I quote from here, i.e. a lash. It is asserted by Dobbs, Smith, Taylor, Hodgkin, and Sharp that the gentle slap is a myth, since there is often use of levels of force that could be harmful. The blow may strike a vulnerable area of the body, or the child may fall and damage his or herself. Madam Speaker, this clearly shows that administering a lash or a gentle slap eventually and almost always turns into abuse, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, let me point out something. This government is not so desperate to win this debate that, like the member of Talparo, we have to use the name of His Excellency in the chamber to sway the argument. Madam Speaker, we are not so desperate because we believe we don't need to go down there, Madam Speaker. spare the rod and spoil the child, Madam Speaker. We've heard it once, and hopefully after what I say here, we will not have to hear it again, because the Honorable Mrs. Kamala Prasad-Bissassa said, and I quote, "Spare the rod and spoil the child is an age-old adage that belongs in the archives, not in schools." Madam Speaker, the member for St. Joseph compared the situation in Barbados. And Madam Speaker, I agree with the comparison. It is a good comparison. But on doing my research, and I hope that the member of St. Joseph takes it in the future, that on the UNICEF website, I came across an article, Madam Speaker, and I quote from the UNICEF representative in Barbados and the Eastern Caribbean, Tom Olson. "All international and regional studies which we have done with children themselves, speaking out about corporal punishment and how discipline is enforced in schools, show it doesn't work." End quotation. The article goes on to say, while corporal punishment is on the rise, and this is Barbados we are talking about, Madam Speaker, while corporal punishment is on the rise, poor behavior among young people in Barbados is not declining. Teachers, principals, and government officials are quick to point out that schools are actually losing control of their students. Madam Speaker, if we make corporal punishment legal in schools, as the member for St. Joseph so rightly pointed out, we have a close bond, Madam Speaker, to Barbados, similar history, similar legislature. And who's to say that these dreadful consequences will not be in Trinidad and Tobago, Madam Speaker, as a result of this? Madam Speaker, let me quote two more sociologists, but this time the chamber may be familiar with them, Madam Speaker. Kerwin and Mendler, as the opposition leader so stated, Madam Speaker. But if the opposition leader had taken the time to continue to read the article, he would have noted that Kerwin and Mendler said, "The key to effective discipline is not one of control or the quick mastery of techniques or even the implementation of a packaged method, but love and understanding, which assists classroom management and teaches students to take responsibility for their behavior." Madam Speaker, let me ask you, is that not what we want in Trinidad and Tobago? Do we not want a child that was violent, that was a bully? Do we not want that child to one day come forward and say, "Yes, I was violent. Yes, I was a bully. Yes, I abused my peers, my students, even my teachers. But thanks to the work of the government and the non-violent methods."
Honorable members, the speaking time of the honorable member for Diego Martin Central has expired.
Madam Speaker, I beg to move that the speaking time of the honourable member be extended by a further 3 minutes.
Honorable members, the question is that the speaking time of the honorable member for Diego Martin Central be extended by 3 minutes. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any against? The ayes have it. Member, you may continue.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you to the chamber. As I was saying, do we not want that child to say, "Yes, I was violent, deviant, abused teachers and students," but thanks to the government, the non-violent methods, thanks to peer mediation, thanks to guidance counselors, thanks to Student Support Services Limited, which will be in all schools by the year 2015, Madam Speaker. Thanks to those non-violent methods, I can say that I have seen where I have gone wrong. I have moved away from my violent past, Madam Speaker, and I thank these people for their non-violent methods, showing me where I went wrong, for showing love and
Would the member be willing
and
to give way?
compassion. No, thank you, Master. Sir, I have my 2 minutes already. Do you not want this person then come forward and say, "I have changed because of these methods"? I ask you, Madam Speaker, will these children ever be able to come to this self-realization and understanding by the use of corporal punishment, Madam Speaker? Whips don't talk, hands don't talk, Madam Speaker. People just talk. People just talk. Love and compassion, Madam Speaker. If we go on to a report by Mrs. Cherise Clark, entitled "Corporal Punishment in Trinidad, a Dilemma of Childhood Discipline." These are people in the school system I'm going to talk about. A student says, "You take the hit, you get your blue marks, that's it." Because these days, they don't lash again. They just cough now. A student say that. A teacher goes on, she says, "Praise wasn't the opposite of disapproval. Approval was no disapproval. So they didn't get compliments." Madam Speaker, compound this with the Caribbean Human Development Report 2012. It says, "Use of corporal punishment in schools has been linked to youth violence." And that because students were beaten but rarely praised or received kind words from their teachers, corporal punishment served mainly to alienate and cause resentment among students. Madam Speaker, what a sad day it is in Trinidad and Tobago when we can say that when a student is violent, deviant does something wrong, they get corporal punishment as a result. And it happens so often, and so much so, that when that same student turns around and does something good, something positive, gets an achievement, their reward is a lack of corporal punishment, Madam Speaker. What is that, Madam Speaker? Are we going to promote that? Not at all. Madam Speaker, thank you for your time.
Member for Tobago East.
Yes, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want you to look at me very good. Look at me. Madam Speaker, I am a product of good licks. And I'm proud to say that, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, in this government, I see hate, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I see acrimony. Madam Speaker, I see bitterness. Madam Speaker, I see ignorance. And Madam Speaker, I see a government that has gone totally out of control.
5, the members imputing improper motives to this government.
Honorable members, may I remind you all not to impute improper motives, please. Honorable member, you may continue.
Yes, Madam Speaker. Now, Madam Speaker, the member for Tabakit, who is also the Minister of National Security, he talked about coming down from Mount Olympus, I think it was. Now, Madam Speaker, when we're talking about Mount Olympus, why don't the government come down from Mount Olympus and explain to the parents of Ronaldo Dixie and sympathize with them as to why he was killed on that day, Madam Speaker? Why? Madam Speaker, the member for Barataria, Arima, as well as Lavantil West, Madam Speaker, quoting international organizations. And also, I must say, Madam Speaker, that the member for Faizabad talking about anarchy. Does she know what anarchy means, Madam Speaker? Now, let me say something, Madam Speaker. When we're looking at international organizations, why we continue to use their way, their standards, their policies are damaging our society. And look at the crime rate, Madam Speaker. And the member for Arima, you seem to like quotes, and I would quote for you. In 2000, the crime rate was 117. In 2008, 550. In 2013, which is today, Madam Speaker, the crime rate is 300 and over. So I think you need to pick up a statistic book and learn, because that is statistics. Now, Madam Speaker, when we're talking about, I want to take a theoretical approach now, Madam Speaker. Let's look at the concept of liberalism, and let's look at the concept of realism. This government is taking a liberalist approach. Madam Speaker, they're talking about cooperation. They see the importance of non-state actors such as UNICEF and the UN and all these different guys, but they are also taking a utopian mindset, Madam Speaker. They need to look at society and look at it for how it is and not how it ought to be. That is how they have to look at it, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I would also like to sympathize with my colleague from St. Joseph, who also talked about classical conditioning. I would like to talk about operant conditioning. Yes, operant conditioning, which was put forward by a guy named B.F. Skinner. Now, B.F. Skinner talked about operant condition taking on two components, which is rewards and punishment. Now, I find it very amazing, Madam Speaker, that within operant conditioning, the promise or possibility of rewards causes an increase in behavior. Now, isn't that nice? And the reward that this government is giving primary school, secondary school students is suspension, detention, project peace, all these different things, which is causing a greater rise in crime in our country. So what is the effectiveness of this? And this is what this government is asking. What is the effectiveness of your programs? Madam Speaker, I also like to talk that
the use of punishment can be used to decrease or prevent undesirable behavior, such as the formation of gangs, such as the whole notion of Gaza and Gully. What is this concept being developed in our school? This is not a war. This is not something that the students should be fighting. This is Trinidad and Tobago, and we must respect the rights of the children. Madam Speaker, in closing, I would just like to say, Madam Speaker, that, you see, students stab students, fighting breakout in school in South. We must not see these articles being put forward in our newspapers. We must not see it anymore, Madam Speaker. It must be dealt with in a swift manner. And I'm calling on the Minister of National Security to do something now, because more than ever, the people of Trinidad and Tobago is depending on you.
Honorable members, the speaking time of the Honorable Member for Tobago East has expired.
Madam Speaker, I beg to move that the speaking time for the Honorable Member for Tobago East be extended by 3 minutes.
Honorable members, the question is that the speaking time of the Honorable Member for Tobago East be extended by 3 minutes. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any against? I think the ayes have it. Honorable Member, you may continue.
Yes, Madam Speaker. Now, Madam Speaker, when we look at Project Peace, when we look at the peer mediation program, when we look at student calls, yes, these are good programs, I agree. But if we look at last year, Madam Speaker, 2,200 students were suspended. And that is why we are talking about the effectiveness of this program. Therefore, we are calling for the reinstatement of corporal punishment. Now, Madam Speaker, we are not saying to be the entire school, Madam Speaker. No, we are not saying that. Madam Speaker, there's a minority, and we must deal with this minority because we must stop rewarding deviant behavior. Madam Speaker, I know that dealing with the school violence in our school is a very hard task. And I know that if we come together, if government and opposition come together, we can deal with it. We can deal with the problems. So I am saying today, government and opposition come together. So because if we don't, then God help us. Thank you.
The Honorable Minister of Local Government.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Well, today I am astonished at what the opposition has brought towards the government today. You know, Madam Speaker, I sat here and I kept noticing that they only studied the teachers. What about the students? Oh, they want to give the teachers rights to be children. But have they considered what the children have a part to play in this? I noticed also that many of the members of the opposition use the definition of corporal punishment from the United Nations Committee on the Rights of the Child, right? And it quotes, any punishment in which physical force is used, ... I shall not waste my time reading the entire definition. But also, what they have failed to further read or realize that there was another paragraph below that from the side that they read it from. And it says, in part with this definition, the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe considered and stated that any corporal punishment of children is in breach of their fundamental right to human dignity and physical integrity. The fact that such corporal punishment is still lawful in certain member states violates their equally fundamental right to the same legal protection as adults. The social and legal acceptance of corporal punishment of children must be ended. So, Madam Speaker, if a large organization as the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe stated that, who are we? Who are we? And as I recall, the member for La Hoqueta stated that we can't be compared to other countries in Europe, America. But, Madam Speaker, as I look around, everyone here is of different ethnic backgrounds. We have East Indians, we have Africans, we may have Chinese, Syrians. So doesn't all that have to play in the cultural addition in Trinidad and Tobago? So I want to bring to your attention some